If you're looking at discovering the power of Mac at scale with a new insightful podcast, well, We Got Your Mac enables you to join IT and business leaders as they delve into the benefits and considerations of adopting Apple Mac's platform in your organisation. So if you're looking to gain the knowledge and confidence you need to make more informed decisions, tune into their guest expert episodes released every 2 weeks. Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and today we're going to delve into an increasingly relevant and vital topic. And that is something you probably don't think about too much, but there's huge waves being made at the moment around how technology can reshape financial well-being for employees. In the workplace, we've all worked with a HR department who offer a variety of benefits, but I would argue, rather than another direct debit out of your wage slip, that employees need something a little more in these challenging economic times. So, joining me today is a distinguished guest. His name's David Woodward, and he's the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Zellis, and they are a leader in HCM and payroll solutions. But with 2 decades of experience in HR and payroll technology, David's going to be bringing with him today a wealth of knowledge and insights because he's at the forefront of integrating advanced solutions like Wagestream's financial wellbeing suite, aiding public and private sector organisations alike. But in a nutshell, today I want to explore how HR and payroll teams can leverage technology to support their employees. The future of financial wellbeing inside the workplace, the role of technology in making that possible, and the impact that technology can have, especially in areas such as early wage access. And for anybody interested in treading this path, I also want to explore the challenges organisations might face in implementing these solutions, but also how they can turn them into opportunities. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the UK, where you can join me and David in a conversation about all this and understanding how technology is not just a tool, but a catalyst for financial stability and wellness. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Neil. Hi. Good to meet everyone, albeit through a podcast. My name is David Woodward. I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer here at Zellis, and I'm very looking forward to the conversation we're about to have.
Me too. It's a huge pleasure to have you on the podcast. And one of the things I wanted to explore today is technology's role in financial well-being, such a huge topic right now. So to begin with, David, could you maybe elaborate on how technology is currently playing a role in supporting the financial well-being of employees, particularly in the context of the cost of living crisis, right in the heart of holiday season where we find ourselves?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And there's no doubt, I think technology plays a pivotal role in that regard. And obviously, I have to declare my bias there, of course, in the profession that I'm in. Of course, I'm going to say that, aren't I? But
yeah.
But I do genuinely believe it as well. In that, if you think about the most basic things in the area of payroll, if people's pay is not correctly calculated, then that clearly can be a massive stress point for any individual not getting the right pay into their pay packet at the end of a pay period. And in fact, we've been doing quite a bit of research around this, and I can certainly direct you to some of that later in the talk. But based on our research, 46% of employees would say that if there was a pay error, that would have a direct causal link to stress and anxiety, and perhaps not unsurprisingly, really. But I think that's just a very straightforward and very obvious example where technology plays a very important role in getting those basics right, getting the hygiene right. And then when we, think beyond that, we clearly think about this day and age, and I know we'll talk more about this, but giving people access to some of their earned wage access early is also, I think, a very significant area where technology is having a disruptive capability to support people in these very challenging times as well.
And we will have a variety of people listening from all around the world. So what advice would you give to, let's say, a HR or payroll team that's looking to leverage technology to better support their employees during these times of economic uncertainty?
I think, again, really, really focusing on making sure that the technology that you do use is being used to the absolute maximum. Clearly, not everyone has the same systems. They don't always have access to the same capabilities, but it's an area I think that everyone can focus on and really ensure that they are double down, if you like, on providing the very best quality service to their employees. And then if we go further, look to see what availability you have to leveraging some of these newer technologies that are becoming available now. And that is in the area of providing people with early access to their earned wages. And I think that's a phenomena that should be seriously looked at by many employers. In fact, I was talking to a customer of ours only the other day, and they were saying how, when we think about what's gone on in the last, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 years, many businesses have moved from weekly payrolls to monthly payrolls for lots of operational reasons. But it probably wasn't, the number one thing on the list wasn't how do we best serve our employees in that regard. And what I think the advent of early wage and earned wage access systems do is provide now a mechanism to almost reverse that trend without adding all the complexity and burden of having to run weekly payrolls.
And we are at that magical time of year at the moment where everybody's thinking about their career, their finances, their personal goals, business objectives, and our feeds are filling up with articles around what tech trends are likely to dominate 2024. So if I was to ask you to look into my virtual crystal ball and maybe look ahead to next year, what technological advancements do you foresee that will further enhance financial well-being for workers and indeed businesses too?
Well, I mean, it's a very exciting time, I would say, in technology. You'd have to have been on a desert island for the last 12 months not to have read about things like Gen AI and Chat GPT. I mean, it's a very exciting period of time, I think, from a technology point of view. And I think those types of technologies will certainly play a role as we look forward in many, many facets, actually, not just in the world we're talking about here. But I think a great example of that would be around people's comprehension of their financial situations. When we think about payslips, just going back to the Humphrey payslip for a second, based on some of the research that we've been doing, 79% of people say that they're not fully confident that they do truly understand their payslip and therefore wouldn't also be able to spot errors within their payslip. So that's a pretty high percentage, but perhaps isn't really too surprising, really. So I think if we go back to the example of what technology can do to help there, I think there's a great opportunity by leveraging things like AI to help explain some of these complexities within someone's pay is, I think, a real game changer potentially. So definitely watch this space in that regard. But that would be one of my top predictions over the next few months or year or two. You'll start seeing, I think, some really impressive ways to help people understand how their pay is constructed. Another big one, if I may be indulged, would be in the area of real-time payroll. I think what this is another technology you'll see increasingly that is taking what has traditionally in payroll been a batch-based type transaction that gets run typically towards the end of a pay period into a world where payroll is always on, always calculating continuously. And in that world, that does open up all sorts of other interesting opportunities in the area of financial well-being as well, because for some employers, it may not be something that all employers will want to embrace, but it starts opening up the potential for real-time pay as well as real-time payroll. And the distinction is important. The former is where the technology is doing the calculations for you from a payroller perspective, but real-time pay is where then you can take that one step further and actually introduce the concept of applying those earned wages straight into people's wallet at any time during the pay period. Now, obviously that has cash flow implications, but I think technology is beginning to challenge maybe the convention and open up all these art of the possible in the future.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. Real game changer there. I'd love to dig a little bit deeper on that. I mean, you mentioned real-time payroll, where that could lead, and early wage access seems like another huge topic. So how significant is the impact of something like early access to wages on employees' financial well-being? And also, What role does technology play in facilitating something like this? Because it sounds incredible. I've not heard anything like this before.
Well, I mean, certainly early wage access is, I would say, a very significant aid to supporting people under these challenging economic times. And we've been, I think, quite surprised, quite candidly, about just how when customers do deploy this technology, just the level of uptake that we see is certainly higher than I would have personally expected, to be quite candid. And we do tend to like to be what we refer to as being customer zero for these things. So here at Zellis, we actually were very early adopters of using this technology ourselves. And while I think my chief people officer would probably confess she perhaps hadn't expected Zellis to perhaps be the obvious type of organization that would need such tools to benefit our employees. And yet, when we've looked at the data, we've really been surprised by the level of uptake in using these technologies within ourselves. We're using our own employees as, if you like, the test case. When we look further afield and we look to see what some of our customers are doing, it also has a very, very significant impact. And just to give you some examples of that, I think a lot of people just immediately go to this point about being able to effectively get earlier access to the wages that they've earned. There's more to these technologies than that. There are all sorts of other attributes to these systems that support people where they are being faced with some challenging financial situations. So an example would be encouraging people to have saving pots. So you're saving for a rainy day and you're effectively creating separate virtual accounts within the system whereby those savings can be encouraged. And I think this is really helping to drive really good behaviors for people, so that if in the event then suddenly their boiler stops working, which perhaps this time of year is high in people's minds, or some other financial impact that they haven't necessarily provided for, then they've actually got those savings already there. Obviously, in the event that they may not have those savings, then the ability of being able to draw down the wages they've already earned in that pay period is a very, very, very helpful and very valuable capability that we find really supports employees at times of great difficulty with the cost of wage, cost of living crisis that we're in right now.
And for any employers or business leaders listening, and maybe they want to help their staff by adding a financial wellbeing solution that genuinely makes a difference to the lives of their staff, just to bring this to life, what we're talking about here, and hopefully make that path a little bit easier, what are some of the common challenges organisations typically face when implementing new tech solutions to address financial wellbeing? And anything you can share on how these challenges can be overcome and turn into opportunities?
It's a good question. I think it does. You'll find it varies. It will vary depending on where your start point is. If you're fortunate enough to be using a system where that work has already been made available and it's an option from your payroll technology vendor, then great. That should make the process a much more seamless one for you, because a lot of the hard work should have been done for you in that regard. So certainly in our case, our implementation internally was very, very rapid. There's I think, frankly, more time is spent more in the change control and the change piece of that than there is in the actual technology part itself. However, of course, if you're coming from a position where those facilities are not available based on the current systems you're using, then it may not be so straightforward, quite honestly. Not to say you can't do it. I think it just means that inevitably there will be more of a technology project to consider in terms of how you're going to do the appropriate integration between your current system and using a third-party platform that can provide you with those sorts of capabilities. And that inevitably will be a bigger and more complex project that you need to manage. So I think it does depend a little bit, Neil, where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But if you are fortunate enough to have a vendor that has already, if you like, solved some of those problems for you, then I would really urge you to really focus on the people-related issues of this, how you communicate it, how you manage that change within your own organization, and really get behind it as a project, because it can be a comparatively in the scheme of projects, it can be a comparatively straightforward project for you, and one that you can get some really strong benefits off the back. I mean, one thing I haven't mentioned that is really worth pointing out there is, even while it's clearly the right thing to do, in my mind, there are real business case reasons to do this as well, because there's very strong evidence that shows that financial stress leads to loss of productivity. So if you didn't need any other reasons to do it, there's a very good, strong return on investment case here as well.
And before you came on the podcast today, I was reading about your recent work integrating Wagestream's financial wellbeing suite for organisations. And I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but is there anything you can share around any insights gained from that and how it impacted their employees, just to bring to life what we're talking about here?
Well, I mean, Wagestream are one of the leading technology firms that are really sort of providing these capabilities in the marketplace. And we chose to partner with them, and we provide a platform which we call Pay Now, which is, underpinned by some of their technologies. And we're finding that partnership's working extremely well. And to my earlier point, we've done the hard yards there. We've done the integration work. We've built the APIs to connect our two systems together in a very secure and very seamless way. And certainly my exposure to that is it's a piece of work that worked extremely well from both parties. We're seeing there's huge interest actually in the marketplace to leverage the solution that's been built. We went probably further than anyone else has, I think, in the past in the integration piece. We were very focused on not just making it a very simple and easy platform for people to use, but we were very conscious that we're dealing with very personal and very private information that needs to be treated with huge levels of security as well. So we introduced some new facilities around our API mechanisms to do what we call whitelisting, which is a bit of a technical point, but essentially it ensures that only data that has been pre-agreed between our two parties can flow between our systems. So it's a way of effectively keeping very strong control around the GDPR implications of exchanging data, but also ensuring that if for any reason some bad actor were involved in some form of cyber event, we've got complete control of that type of data between our two businesses. But I would say it's worked extremely well. We work really well in partnership with Wagestream, and like I say, it's resulting in a very strong uptake across our customer base.
And of course, it isn't all about the technology, as you mentioned earlier. So how can companies better balance the use of technology, but also include that personal touch to ensure that financial wellbeing initiatives are both efficient and empathetic too? Because that's such an important part of this too, isn't it?
Neil, you're asking a techie.
Sorry.
You want me to be empathetic? I'm not sure that's probably one of my strong suits. But no, joking aside, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, of course, it's not all about technology. Obviously, technology is the most important thing. No, again, I'm joking. But actually, I would actually quite genuinely say it is the personal touch that is the most important thing. I mean, let's all remember that this is a very, very personal matter. If people find themselves in financial difficulties, this is not a great place for anyone to be in. And, your employer is probably not the number one place you go. Again, research points to the fact that the people go to for help is obviously friends and family to start with. But the employer is fairly high on that list as well. And I think showing compassion and showing that the amount, and obviously demonstrating the privacy that needs to be managed around this sensitive topic, I think is very, very key. And it's obviously on the employer, and I think particularly the payroll and HR professionals, to really lean in that particular area and appreciate that this is a topic that needs to be handled with great sensitivity and great empathy. And that is as important and frankly more important than just deploying the technology.
And as a techie, you've really earned your stripes out there in the field throughout your career. And I'm curious, if I was to ask you to look back and draw upon your extensive experience in HR and indeed payroll technology as well, what would you say the key lessons that you've learned that are maybe helping shape your approach at Zellis, both now and into next year and beyond too?
I think personally, I'd say I'm always learning. I think we're all always learning. Every day's a school day, isn't it? And
yeah.
while I have been at this for longer than I care to remember, but I think I was adding up the other day, I've been leading HR and payroll technology over the last 25 odd years. And I had 10 years prior to that building out what are called ERP, enterprise resource planning systems, prior to getting into the HR and payroll world. But yeah, I think, for me, the big takeaways when I sort of look back and reflect on that, it would be, don't try and do it all yourself. It's all about building great teams. It's about empowering people within those teams. Getting people to play to their strengths, for me, has been something that I've learned over the years that, sometimes things like performance management systems spend too much time, in my mind, talking about where people haven't delivered against objectives or where their weaknesses are. I personally like to spend a lot more time talking about where people's strengths are and trying to ensure all the time that I give people tasks and work that I know that they're going to be very good at, because it's a great strength of theirs. And I think that becomes a virtuous circle if you do that. And a part of that as well, I would say, is just be really authentic. And I know that's one of those rather overused, hackneyed phrases, but I really do believe in it. I think the more you can try and take the real you into the workplace and not try and have a facade of someone different when you're in front of your colleagues or your teams, I do believe that's a very important behavior as a leader, certainly. And one of the things I try to do, certainly in my role, is help remove friction within getting work done. Sometimes in organizations, it can be that sort of treacle effect, if you like, that can slow things down. And everyone's trying to move faster. Everyone's trying to be agile. And certainly as a leader of technology, it's really key, I think, to be someone there that can unblock blockages and let people get the work done in the most effective and most rewarding way possible.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for investing a little of your time today to sit down and shine a light on this hugely important topic. But before I let you go, I want to ask you to leave everyone listening with one final guest. I always ask every guest to leave the listeners with either a book that means something to them that we can add to the Amazon wish list, maybe something you would like to recommend, or a song to add to our Spotify playlist. Guilty pleasures allowed, but what would you like to leave everyone listening with, and why?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, I could probably go through some books, but I'm a huge music fan. I've got a very large collection. I still do collect music. I still have vinyl, so that's showing my age, isn't it? But I love hi-fi and all the sort of geeky aspects of it as well, being a techie. But so no, I love music. So I'm going to have to go with the song choice rather than the book choice, if I may.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are obviously thousands of songs to pick from, but I'm going to pick one that hopefully many of the listeners will know. It's a fairly famous song. It's by Peter Gabriel, "Don't Give Up," and it was a duet he did with Kate Bush. So actually, two of some of my favorite artists actually came together on that particular recording. And if you don't know it, it's a great song. It's on the So album, also a great album. But it's a powerful song. It's a very, very powerful song. And those that are interested, you can sort of Google this if you like. But apparently, Elton John cites it as the song that kept him alive, which is pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
He's actually gone out and admitted that he affected was very near. So he was suicidal, and that song was the song that kept him going. So if for no other reason, I would recommend you listening to it with that lens. I think it could be interpreted in many, many different ways, but it's a very powerful song.
It really is, and it'll be a huge pleasure to get that added to our Spotify playlist. And from one techie to another that might be interested in exploring vinyl once again, I'm curious, as a techie, what option did you go with for your deck? Is it a deck and Bluetooth speakers, or have you gone cables? Or I'll give you a chance to geek out before we get.
Oh, careful! No, I'm seriously afflicted by the hi-fi bug. Have been since a teenager. So I did spend far too much time and money on this. So those that are actually interested in this, I have a Michel Engineering gyro deck, which is a piece of art as well as a beautiful turntable. It's a beautiful thing. And I have an SME Series 5 tone arm, which is considered by some as the greatest tone arm of all time. So yeah, it's a very nice turntable. And I I don't play that much vinyl anymore, if I'm being honest, but when I do, I get not only pleasure from listening to it, but I get pleasure just going through the experience of putting the record on the turntable and watching the turntable do its thing, as well as listening to it.
And is Bluetooth speakers a dirty word in your world?
Sort of is, yeah, I'm afraid. Yeah, it is. I use electrostatic speakers, listen, that could be another whole podcast.
Yeah, man. Sounds like we need to get you back on to talk about that as well. But before I let you go, for everyone listening, just wanting to find out more information about the topic that we talked about today, where would you like to point everyone listening?
Well, I would have to say the Zellis.com website. You'll find a wealth of information in there. I did refer briefly to a couple of data points from one of our most recent surveys that you'll find also there. If you go over to the Knowledge Hub section of our website, you'll see a section there around financial well-being where you can read up quite a lot of the results, which has some pretty startling data points in there, a couple of which I did cite in our brief chat.
Well, I absolutely love chatting with you today. Every day I try and get people thinking differently about the role of technology in our lives and hearing more about how technology is benefiting financial well-being for employees through the cost of living crisis, and also offering a bit of advice for HR and payroll teams looking to maybe leverage technology to better support their employees during these times of uncertainty. Absolute gold for me. Even had a chance to leave us with a great song and a little hi-fi advice too. So thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Thanks so much, Neil. Nice talking to you.
So thanks for joining me today on the Tech Talks Daily podcast. It was an absolute pleasure having David share his valuable insights there on the intersection of technology, financial well-being, and even a little fantastic advice on the world of hi-fi too. But today's discussion highlighted the crucial role that technology plays in supporting employees during economic uncertainties. And I, for one, enjoyed exploring the innovative approaches that organisations can take to enhance their employee financial health, and also that significance of things like early wage access and navigating the challenges in implementing these technologies. But remember, the integration of technology in HR and payroll is not just about efficiency. It's actually about making a real difference in people's lives, especially in these times of need. So thank you for listening as always. Please stay tuned for more episodes where we will continue to demystify complex technologies and uncover real-world impacts along with business value. But as Bruce Springsteen says, nobody wins unless we all win. So thank you for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.